Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of The Crew Car with myself, James Battey, and I'm joined by Kayleigh Liddell. Sorry, apologies.
It's fine. I am used to it.
From Hill Robinson Crew Services. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. It's in the not so sunny Wales. It started off positive, but needless to say, the clouds have come in now, so it looks like.
Yeah, I can't really compare considering I'm sat in the south of France. So it's beautiful sunshine.
No gloating. No gloating. Banned from gloating. So, Kayleigh, I just wanted to sort of touch base with yourselves. I see you do a lot of positive stuff for Crew, which is always, and things like that, from my perspective, need to be celebrated and elevated. Wow, I might just make those rhyme. But yeah, I just want to elevate the good within yachting and what I see you doing. And I've had the pleasure of your company at a couple of events where, I see you talking about the positive changes you'd like to see within yachting. And I think everyone wants to see them. It's just necessarily how we maneuver ourselves to getting there. But maybe just give everyone a little bit of background to yourself, how you found yourself in yachting, where you've come from, your background, why the passion is the sea, so to speak.
I mean, wow, it's kind of a long story. I mean, I think when you start getting into your 40s, it gets longer. But I actually, as we were just saying before, I actually came from a completely different background. Despite the fact that I was born in Portsmouth, I grew up on the Isle of Wight, yachting was not something I was really aware of. It was, there was sailing during Cows Week and that was about it. So my life actually started off, I went into studying animals because I loved animals when I was younger. And from that, I ended up teaching. Because in education, I learned about the importance of teaching. I learned about the importance of training. But even at that time, my bosses kind of pushed me more into the kind of student care side. They were pushing me to take on all the tutorials, the recruitment of new students and all the support stuff for students. So it was always that side of things that I ended up being pushed into. And then when I left teaching, I basically started doing recruitment and HR because I found that what I really cared about was caring about people. Yeah. And I did that for many years in different guises. I found myself actually living in Italy and working for a company there. Yeah. And I loved this verse in San Remo. So
really?
yeah. Just across
the wonderful Mansueto land.
Yes. And I mean, Italy is absolutely a fantastic place to live. And what's funny is, again, I've got all these beautiful yachts in front of me. No concept of yachting, though. That was just like, of course, these lovely, probably very rich people sat on their boats that I like to look out on when I'm sat with my Aperol Spritz thinking, oh, what would it be like? And then, unfortunately, during COVID, the company that I was working with went through a lot of difficult times. We lost a lot of business. It was very difficult. And the company itself started to kind of crumble. I definitely disagreed with a lot of decisions that were being made. And it really started to affect my mental health. And at the time, just before we went into lockdown, I actually met the man who is now my husband.
Really?
Yeah. There's nothing like starting a relationship.
There's a love story in it as well.
Yeah, there's nothing like starting a relationship during a lockdown and stuff. Definitely within that first year that we went
together.
We saw nothing of each other, and then we saw everything of each other. That was it.
Baptism of fire.
Yeah. And he was living in France, and I moved across to France during COVID, lockdown with him. And it's amazing how somebody else's perspective can really have an impact, because he's just sat there just like, this is not okay. How you're feeling is not okay. What you're going through is not okay. The lack of appreciation is not okay. And that really woke me up. So I quit, and I decided, and I tell this story quite often to people who ask me about how I got into yachting. I wanted a 9 to 5 job. I was like, I put myself through so much in the last few years. I have been on the phone 24/7. I have witnessed screaming matches in my office and things. I want a 9 till 5 that I can just like leave at 5 o'clock and not think about it. And so when this job turned up, yeah, for a yacht administrator, I was like, I could just do some admin for a couple of years, you know, that's fine. That lasted about 4 weeks.
Hey, this was, I was going to say 24 hours would have been probably a book.
I learned so much in that first month because they basically got me working with all the different yachts, all the different yacht management teams, and move me around so that I could learn about, you know, all of the compliance aspects, the safety aspects, the general operational stuff. And then I got taken to the Yacht Crew Retention Conference where we were at the other week. And that's when they kind of broke it to me. They were like, so Kayleigh, the real reason we hired you yeah, is that we've got a client who would like to do HR for yachting. You know, he's kind of confused as to like, he's got HR in his companies. Why do we not have HR here? And he really hates seeing every single year different crew on board the boat. And I was like, fine, I can do that. I've built HR in my previous company from the ground up. You know, when I first got there, they had nothing. By the time I left, I think they had like policies, handbooks, welcome packs, everything. And I thought it was going to be so easy. I was like, this is fine. And I think
it's yachting. There's loads of money. It's gonna be easy. Everyone's gonna be so welcoming of it. And it's like, why are people closing doors? That's bizarre.
I think my favorite thing, I like to think back to it now and just laugh at myself because I was just so ready to be like, okay, captains, here, and like, here's your savior, here's your rescue.
Yeah,
they were like,
everyone's like that.
it was so, because no, Kayleigh, that's not how it happens. And I still know those captains now, and like, we laugh about it a little bit. But I think my very first kind of lessons was when I came in and I was like, okay, here's a welcome pack. And everybody was amazed. What is this thing? I'm like, this is minimum standards. And then I was talking in those times, I was like, it's kind of crazy that you don't have this. Right, I'm going to write it and you're just going to use it. And my yacht manager, Celine, was just like, Kayleigh, no, like, we want this, but you need to step back. If you don't have those captains, then you're never going to get anything. Like, you need to sit and you need to talk to those captains. And that's pretty much what I've done for the last 4 years is I've just taken that on board and I've just listened. And I've listened and I've listened and I've listened. And now I'm okay. Here's the tools that I think you could possibly use, but accepting the fact that I can give you a whole bunch of tools, I can't make you use them.
Yeah. Lead a horse to water, don't make it drink.
Yeah. You know, that comes down to captains like yourself, James. It's, we can do all this stuff on shore, but we're not on board. And it's something that we have to respect as management companies and as recruiters, trainers, everything. We have to respect the fact that whilst we can sit here on shore and be like, okay, here's a solution, here's everything, you know, here's this tool, we're not on board, we're not seeing that day to day, and we have to have real respect for that.
Yeah. Well, it's nice of you to say that. It's that happy medium where you find the balance, because there are, you know, HR in its own world comes with its own connotations, of which there has a reasonable amount of negative connotations behind it, because people see it as rules and you can't do this and you can't do that and you can't say that to that person. But it's just, I was brought up by my parents to sort of, manners are really important, common courtesies. And I think that's it in a nutshell. If you could just say it's just about having manners and knowing how to treat someone and making sure that you facilitate their needs, not just because I feel in our industry, yachting is very much about obviously what the owner wants, what the charter guest wants. the crew is somewhat second fiddle to that. It's like, if you don't like it, you can go and find something else. And it's like, but hang on, well, but that's just that's not right as it is. You know, that shouldn't be in place, and we need to adjust it. And I think that ability to sort of ease HR, because from your perspective, it must have been incredibly challenging to turn up with a sleeping set. Yeah. Well, yeah, completely, because it's not widely accepted. I think we talked about it, and my takeaway from the retention conference was to have a baseline standard, because there's a huge amount of grey area in yachting. You know, what size vessel are you on? What tonnage is it? Is it private? Is it commercial? Is it managed? Is it not? And when you have so many moving parts and not everyone has the same moving parts, it's very difficult to create a universal kind of level.
Yeah.
And this is why, from my perspective, I was like, well, we're going to need to do it for ourselves. You know, if we can set our own standard and then we can build on it, it's very difficult to sort of demand certain things when you haven't got your own house in order, so to speak.
I think
you know, we'd like this and we want that, and we want people are like, yeah, but those guys don't have the basics.
Yeah.
And well, we'll just hire them. They don't care so much about it. And it's like, what? Hang on, you're not allowed to hire these. They don't have the right. Well, we're private. We don't need that document, and we're under that tonnage, and it just makes it very difficult to be able to go, no more, because there's always someone, from my perspective, who will go, I'll do it. And it's like, mate, you shouldn't do it. It's not safe. It's not the right environment. It's, you know, you're not looked after. It's just this kind of revolving door. And I think there's a huge place for HR within yachting.
But what's funny is that the term HR as well, and I agree, like when you get the term HR, like we used to talk about HR robots, like they're robots and they got their rules. On shore, we don't even really talk about HR anymore. We talk about people and culture. And even that's kind of, for me, what the next steps for yachting are. Like, it's incredible that we've now got this acceptance of HR in yachting. We've got people who actually have HR written into their job titles. It's starting to be a thing, and we're starting to recognize that you need to put into place certain policies, certain documentation and things to set the standard on board. But the next step has to be towards the people and culture side of it. And that is really made up of a culmination of, yes, having your policies in place, whether it's compassionate leave policies, having welcome packs so you actually know what you're going into when you go to a job. But it's also like, what is your training budget? What is your personal development? Not just as a crew member providing a service, but also as a person, and all of those. I hate to use the term soft skills because they're so important, but things like how you communicate with someone. Like you say, it's about being respectful, being polite. And that for me will be kind of those next steps for yachting. It's amazing that we've kind of seen all of these different companies, kind of come into it at the moment as well. You've got, people like Super Yacht Fitness for your fitness and community things. We've got all sorts of wonderful things out there that people are trying to do. People like Xanthi from Wave Wellness, all of these things that are popping up. And now it's, well, how do we get all of these things to work together to provide that people and culture and provide a really good workspace? The problem is, within yachting, let's say, it comes a lot down to the owner, despite the fact that the industry is built on crew. You've got no crew, you're not going anywhere. We still have to, I think there's a lot of work that the industry needs to do together. And it's not just going to be either management or crew or brokers. All of us together have to do a lot of work to educate owners on why this stuff is important, why you can't treat your boat differently to how you would treat any other company that you run.
Well, this is, I think that's it. I think when you look, these people who, have super yachts and yachts as a whole, they're very successful within their business. but that's not applied, that same structure, that same support that people within their company receive and have doesn't sort of spread over when it moves into the sort of personal use of something, their asset. And you kind of think, I'm incredibly lucky. I work for, as we like to call him, the unicorn, because like unbelievable, someone that respects your time. And when you're like, well, yeah, we can, but I'm not sure that's going to work. He'd be like, no, I get that. That makes sense. And it's like, what? Sorry, you kind of almost
That's a dream.
It literally is the dream. And there are quite a few people who have that, and I hear it more and more. But on the other side of it, there are quite a few people that don't have that at all. And you hear horror stories. And it's unfortunately the same horror stories year after year on the same vessels where you're like, they have a revolving door of crew because they don't care. They're just like, I don't care. I'm on board. And I just need someone to put a drink down. I just need someone to do this. And if they don't like the environment, they can leave, and they keep going. And they're just churning them out. And it's like, how do you maneuver into a vessel like that and go, guys, we need to change this, when the person who's paying for everything is like, I'm not interested in that system. I don't care. Because they're not necessarily willing to take on what the long-term benefits would be to their actual overall experience. And I think it's how do you maneuver in to go, I promise you give this structure, this support to your crew. It's how do we do it? And some people, in my view, the smart business people are like, yes, this works in my company. We have an HR department. We support people. We have compassionate leave. We have structure. We have training. We have all this benefits that support people and go, be part of this company because we can't do anything without you. And I think, as you rightly said, I mean, you can remove management. I think management is a fantastic asset to a yacht structure, but you can remove that. You can remove other bits of it and the yacht will still function, not nearly as well, but you remove the crew and nothing works. Yeah. And I think we need to remember that actually in this whole yachting picture, we are the commodity. And I think we've kind of forgotten that aspect and we've kind of gone, well, actually without us, nothing works. So we need to kind of not shift the balance of power, but kind of go, well, this should be how it works. These should be standards as a minimum that people are accepted to adhere to. It's just how we do it.
And it's complicated.
No, massively complicated. You've got flag state. We don't need to do this. Yeah. We're Jamaican flag. We don't need that. Oh, we're only 300 gross tons. We're this. We're private. We don't. And you just end up going, okay, cool. And there's always a get out. And when it comes down to an investment, it's like anything in life. You have to speculate to accumulate. And, it's just like, well, if we just do steady, works on anything, a house, a car, you've got to maintain it. You've got to make sure that you're doing that. It'll pay off long term. But initially you're like, I can't afford £100 a month on my car. You just left school or whatever. You're like, I'll just leave it. Then it breaks. Then you're in for 2,500. You're like, oh, I should have just paid the little and often. And I think that kind of almost applies to yachting. Just little and often, people for training and all that stuff. Much like we were saying at the retention conference, I personally think shipyards are like an untapped gold mine for being able to get, all these kind of work groups, team building, all that stuff into, because you're there. The owner's not using the yacht. It's very difficult to try and structure anything else, training as a team, apart from your normal fire drills and safety drills that you're doing on board. Because if you're not sort of in the yard, you're essentially operational, which means that the owner can come at any time. And then invariably you're like, we've put this in. And then it's like, actually, I'm using the boat that day. And it's like, okay. And then you end up going, do you know what? It doesn't work. We're not going to do it. We'll just do it when we're all free. Then people are on holiday. People are on leave. some people are on training or whatever, and it's like, we can't do it. And you never really have that cohesive
Yeah.
aspect to it.
I 100% am making sure that our head of academy, Laura, listens to that bit, because she has this exact problem all the time. She has all this wonderful training. We guest I am accredited now, and it's that, right, I can do your leadership training. We do coaching, we do mental health training. We've got thousands of courses online as well. And she's like, okay, but when are we going to do this? Like, that's what it always comes down to. And she's a fantastic learning and development specialist. And all she wants to do is get on board those boats and really help effectively. Again, hand over some tools that people can use when they're on board, whether that is as a leader, whether that is just as a team member. But trying to get on board the vessels is so difficult. And we even struggle sometimes with shipyards, because with shipyard period, you're right, it's the perfect time to get on board. But then we'll get like, actually, no, we can't do it that time because we've got different works going on, or this person's on leave at that point. And it's
I was speaking
a
to
lot
Monaco
of time and investment.
Yeah, completely. But I was speaking to Monaco Marine about it, to Aldrich down there in La Seine. And I was like, they've got fantastic facilities, because rightly, much now as Safe Haven Marinas have bought up a huge amount of yards and everything now. Because I'm sure, well, I don't know whether you have been to the US, but you go to like Directors, LMC, all the big shipyards. What have they worked out? They've worked out that if you invest in crew, so you put like nice restaurants, amazing gym, stuff for crew to do, like crew parties every week, events, go-karting, bowling, all this kind of stuff, then the crew want to go there, which means that they bring the business of the yacht into that yacht. And like I said to Aldrich a couple of weeks ago at Monaco Marine, I was like, this is prime. If you've got these facilities, because they've got nice big conference rooms and all that within the yard, that you can be like, okay, we're putting on, as part of the shipyard, these management, these training kind of HR, human resources style kind of event. And you can go, right, you're doing it on this day, you're doing it on this day, you're doing it on that day. And then it's almost taken care for you. You don't really have to think and try and plan it. It's just something, and also it's seen as kind of, it's free. So you're not asking the owner to pay for it, but it's all encompassed. The yard can charge a little bit of money that just goes into operational and the added.
James, did you read my business development plan? Because I think you've just summed up what I was doing.
I think I'm fully supportive of it. I was just, like I say, the other day when we were there, I was talking with Aldrich. It was actually another chap who used to coach the Olympic team on sort of team building and all this stuff, Alan Oliver, really nice guy. And he reached out to me and was like, if it was you, what would you do? Supposedly you're the person to talk to within yachting. And I'm like, I wouldn't have said that, but I'll take the compliment. I said, I'll take the compliment. I said, but from my perspective, go to yards, go to shipyards, because everyone sat there past 5 o'clock. There's obviously the gym there, but a lot of people, you're kind of in a yard. There's not necessarily a huge amount to do. So it's quite a good place to be able to go, look, we've got people here already all together. Let's get them operational as a team and build that team building. And I think, if that's your business structure, I think it's a win. I was wholeheartedly support that. But
I got to make it happen yet. And that is the key thing. And like with that in the shipyard, I think that's what we need more of in the industry is collaboration. We need the collaboration happen. We've always been very private. There's a lot of restricted. There's a lot of competition, gatekeeping. It's a lot. But I think we are starting to see a lot more collaboration. Like certainly for me, one of the key things about the bridge between think tank is that I am sat in a room with 15 other yacht management companies and yacht employment companies. And we're sat and we're talking about what we can do together for the industry. And I think that's a massive change from where we were even 5 years ago when I first started. We're actually starting to have conversations and work together. And one of the things we quite often discussed is that we're sat there talking as representatives from management employment companies. Not every boat has management.
Yeah.
So when we do things as a group, we can obviously take them back into our companies, but who's taking them on board those vessels that don't have management?
Yeah, completely. But like you say, I read an article last night, and I think it was spot on. He was saying how boat shows, are they important to go to anymore? And competition, which you've just said, there's lots of competition in yachting. Competition's amazing because competition makes you look at your own business and go, shit, we're not doing that. Why aren't we doing that? We need to be doing that. And it's the same with boat shows. You go there and you get to see what your competitors are doing, and your version of what they might be operating might be better. And then they come back next year and they go, well, they've taken what we were doing and they've made, actually, now we'll take that and we'll tweak it and we'll do this. And you're just constantly pushing and leveling each other up. And that's the joy of collaboration, that cooperative aspect. And I think,
I think that's the dream.
Yeah.
Like when I first started out and talking about HR, what's funny is the conference we were in a couple of weeks ago, somebody said to me, that's the first time I've heard HR mentioned in a yachting conference. I was like, I've been talking about this for years.
Yeah.
For years. But what's nice now is that everybody, like, I'm not saying I invented HR.
Oh, there we go. Just take it. Just run with it. Just run with it.
But I'm just going to do it. But they've all copied that now. Yeah. Everybody's copied each other. We've started to pick up on it. So for me, I'm like, that's a win.
Yeah.
And my next thing is I'm looking at the next thing. You all copied that. That makes me feel really good about myself and actually makes me feel like we're making an impact on the industry. I'm then thinking, okay, what's the next thing we can do that you're going to copy, and what's the next thing we can do? And I'm only ever going to achieve that through collaboration.
But this is it. I feel yachting has been and is a massive echo chamber. It's the same people in the same room and constantly like, oh, you know what we should do? We should do this. It's like, yeah. Didn't we talk about that last year? And it's like, well, we're collecting data. And it's like, awesome. What did you do with last year's data? Well, we using it against this year's data. Okay, cool. And what are you doing with this? We'll compare this year's with next year's. And it's like, woo, I can see a theme here. It's like, how about we make some changes? And it's like, it's all very well and good, and data's really important, but you have to do something with it. And
change takes time.
Yeah.
It does take time.
It does take time, but when I came into this industry 21 years ago, I described it to a mate of mine back in the city. He was like, what's it like? And I said, it's the Foreign Legion. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, there's just people running away from all kinds of things in yachting. You're like, you were A and now you're A. And then you like take them out on a crew night drinks and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And you meet some amazing characters in this industry, but there is still very much that sort of unknown. And I think until we bring in baseline standards, like we're trying to do with the registry, so that we know that people have, when I say to people, a friend of mine is a teacher here in he works within the sort of civil service here in Pembrokeshire. And we were talking about it last night and saying about how we don't have to have criminal background checks. And he just genuinely, his face was like, what, sorry? And I was like, yeah, no, we don't, it's not a requirement. He's like, but how does that even? And I'm like, yeah, it's bizarre, that you are sharing a space and you're in a high stress environment where, if anyone's going to go, it's going to be when they're tired and they're under the cosh for, their day-to-day job. And suddenly they've got this little niggle of something that maybe no one's seen. And of course it's going to come out at that time, And it's just
honestly,
insurance.
Yachting is weird.
Yeah.
It is weird. People say to me all the time, yachting's so unique. I'm like, to me, yachting is not unique. It's weird. Like, it is bizarre. There are things that, especially for me, come from HR, I see things, I'm like, well, hang on a second. This is really basic stuff that you don't have. Like, none of it's rocket science.
Yeah.
That's why I do it, because it's not rocket science. But I think what we've kind of accepted in yachting is that this kind of rhetoric of it's unique, it's complicated and everything else. And therefore people kind of...
But don't we use that as an excuse?
Where to start? Yeah.
Isn't that just an excuse?
Start with it.
I know, but I think it's like the old smoke and mirrors. You can kind of be like, ooh, get distracted by the shiny thing, and it's like, ooh, ooh.
Yeah.
And whereas it's like, oh, thank God for that. We nearly ended up with that jar for everyone. And it's like, dodge that bullet. It's like, no, we need structure. We need something where people, because you can't have accountability without it.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, well, that's... Unfortunately, we had to let Steve go. Yeah, but you shouldn't, like that wasn't fair how you let him go. No, but it's fine under our flag and for our tonnage. It's like, what? How does that even make sense?
But the key thing about the accountability is that it seems to sit everywhere and nowhere. Because if you are, ultimately a lot of the time, yes, it sits with the captain, which is why I don't want to sound condescending, but I feel sorry for captains all the time. And I'm like, I just really want to help you, because that's a really difficult position to be in. But the captain's not the employer. Yeah. The captain's not the flag state. The captain's not the owner. Yeah. There's a huge amount of responsibility. Yeah. But who's actually accountable for all these different areas and these different vessels? Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
And it's exactly that. There needs to be a clear chain of command, because the responsibility and the accountability sits with the captain. But then does the captain have the structure beneath him to support maybe his decisions and the processes that he sort of puts on crew? And I think that's where the problem sort of falls down, because on some vessels, people don't have that. And then you make a decision, you stand by it, and then you end up getting ousted because it's like, well, actually, we've changed. And it's like, well, there was nothing in place. So I was doing what I thought was best for the vessel, for the owner, rarely, hopefully, in today's world, if you've got a management company, then that hopefully shouldn't happen. Not to say that it doesn't. There we go. Exactly.
I see a lot of you lot. Yeah, as we know. No, obviously no individual is perfect. I'm sure no management company is perfect, but I don't think anybody goes into management in order to try and do the wrong thing. Yeah. Everybody is trying to support the captain, to support the crew, to support the owner. But I think ultimately, we are a very big, strange industry, and we need to accept that, for me, it's not unique totally. There are elements that are seen in yachting that are seen in other industries. The isolation, the loneliness, the lack of regulation. We see these things in other industries, but we also see how those industries have, tackled that problem. The unique thing about yachting is how those individual elements are put together. And I think actually, if we started looking at, okay, here's an element, here's what other people are doing, let's try and see whether we can fit this into yachting as well. Yeah. And, not just, like, say, using the unique aspect as an excuse, but actually looking at, okay, what's around us that we can use? Because I find it very interesting that we're now talking about captains in terms of captains as CEOs. I wonder how many captains went into the industry to become a captain who thought, yes, I'm doing this because I want to run my own business as a CEO one day. I don't think that's why a lot of our captains are going into the industry. No. And yet the expectation nowadays seems to have changed less to be about, actually being the captain of a boat, and more being, like, say, a CEO running a business, running HR, running budgets.
Accounting, budgets, people, navigation, like your actual job. Like my stepdad was the commercial pilot of British Airways for 33 years. and sort of ended up on the 777 for the last 15. And it always used to blow his mind when I'd be talking about what I'm doing and my job, and he'd be like, "What? But I don't really understand. But you don't have that. How do you? So what?" And I'd be like, "I know it's bizarre." And I think we need to have that structure within yachting. I think, from my perspective, if you're employed as crew, then depending on what size vessel, like you are now employed, there should be a support structure of like watered down versions depending on what size it is, but it needs to be universal. And I think that's what needs to happen, not this like sub 500. Oh, well, we're 600 tons, so we do get access to this. And well, we have management and we don't. And, you can't have some people adhering to something and others not. I mean, it always blows my mind in yachting full stop that, you go and anchor in, say, Pamplon Beach in Saint-Tropez, and there you are on a 60-meter, and then someone comes and anchors in their 40-foot Sunseeker next to you, puts out 5 meters of chain in 2 meters of water, and then jumps in a tender and goes off and has 6 bottles of rosé. And you're like, so what? We're now responsible to look after and watch your boat as it drifts towards us. And then they get back in the boat and they shoot off. And it's like, you can't do it. If you fly light aircraft, you still adhere to the same aviation rules as everywhere else. And I think that's where yachting in our section of the maritime industry has gone wrong. Like, we're like, well, we don't really need to adhere to those. We're private, we're this. And it's like, no, we have to, because I always used to do it with charter guests. Over the years, I've had some people who are like, we want to go to sea. And it's, 4, 6, 7 out there. And I'm like, we're down to sea. And I always take it back and I go, well, you came on a private jet. And if your captain of the jet said, right, guys, sorry, it's not safe to take off, you wouldn't even question it. You wouldn't even question it. Mm-hmm. Because you're up in the sky and it's terrifying, the thought of falling out the sky. There is a very good reason, and I always come back to it, there is a very good reason there is a saying, worse things happen at sea. And, then they really do. The idea of you thinking that, it's all right, I can always swim back. No, you can't.
No.
You really can't. And but they don't see it like that. And you just got to stay so firm. And I've had people poke me in the chest and be like, you will got to see. And I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. Right? It's that problem with
there is safety as well.
Yeah.
It is a problem with it, but it's also a problem that we're talking about an industry that was basically built off the back of someone's hobby. Yeah. That's what it is. It's not the same as kind of, even with flight, it was like, that's a industry to get from A to B. And it started out as something that was mass and then it became smaller people. We're building off the back of somebody one day looking at a boat and being like, okay, I'd love to do that as a hobby. And then it transformed into, okay, this is my holiday. And with that comes that kind of, well, when you're on holiday, you're kind of the customer is always right sort of mentality as well. And they have forgotten. Yeah, people forget that, yes, if you go to a hotel, you can demand an awful lot of things, but the likelihood of something going catastrophically wrong that could lead to you being injured or killed is a lot lower than if you're on board a boat that is out to sea. And they've forgotten that part of it. And they've forgotten that this is not just a hobby anymore.
Do you think that
people are employed? Your safety is a concern here. The boats have become so much bigger. They're used so much more in a different way. And
do you think some responsibility
people are just kind of forgetting that?
Therefore lies with the broker? I mean, there is a huge amount of selling the dream, not the reality. Particularly when it comes to money. Like, right, okay, well, you've bought a yacht for 30 million. It's going to cost you, let's go 10% because that's the rule of thumb, 3 million a year to run it. And then it's, well, we don't really need, we can cut that, we can trim the fat to a certain level. And then it's like, it's more palatable for an owner to be like, okay, well, 1.8, I can deal with that. They get the deal over the line, and then those fees start creeping back in, and they're like, I didn't sign up for this, and it's like, so they're in like.
And the first thing they're cutting is the crew stuff.
Of course,
they're cutting is the training budget, the crew bonuses.
Yeah.
They're going on a lesser insurance plan. They're the first things that they cut. I think one of the most dangerous things is that, I worked with some amazing brokers. And I remember when we first started talking about crew services, they were like, oh my God, this is awesome. But I spend a lot of time talking to a lot of people, listening to a lot of people. And I also hear and see it myself, the kind of independent one-man bands who are out there who, they're working on commission, they really want to get that sale, and they will tell the owner anything. And
I just want to get it over the
I
line.
know they want to get it over.
But like you said,
I heard charter people say that if you put this boat out for charter, eventually you'll make money.
I always love that idea. You're just like, they're like, shh, you don't say anything. You're HR.
And I remember I went back and told our head of charter, he just laughed. He laughed. It was just but this is, again, like even last week at the conference, Estelle asked some questions about why did a manager do this and that. And when I spoke to her, she kind of explained that it wasn't a management company. It was somebody acting, saying, I'm the yacht manager. But it is an ex-captain who's come on shore, obviously thought, I can do management better than anyone else. What he's actually doing is acting like an owner rep, not really as a yacht manager, because all he's doing is basically with the owner says just going and doing it.
So,
which is a very different thing. And so I think that there is a bit of a danger onshore as well as on board as far as regulation is concerned, because you can at any point have someone just pop up and say, right, I'm going to be yacht manager.
Yeah, and you get a lot of it.
Charter broker.
A lot of them tend to be captains who got good relationships with an owner, then see a management company in and go, I can do this. And guess what they do? They go on the financial metric. They go, you're paying 10,000 a month. I can do it for 8. And, and we have the relationship. And then, as you said, it tends to be the crew stuff that gets trimmed first. And and you find yourself going, well, like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it happens all too often. So magic.
Dislike yacht management companies, but the key thing about it, no matter how big or small that yacht management company is you've got other people around you. So when these things come up, you can talk to each other. Yeah. But not every boat has a yacht management company. We have these individuals that are cropping up. And my concern right now, I took that from the conference as well, is that what are we doing about all of these boats that are under a certain tonnage that don't have the same support, because they're out there as well, and they deserve some support and they deserve some structure. And as an industry, I feel like they're getting left behind a lot.
Yeah, and it's almost like you need a regulation. Like you have to, if you are employing a crew member, then you have to provide a certain level of support in management so that you have some form of structure. Because management for me should be there to help, not hinder. And I've worked with some awesome management companies over the years where they're there to help you. Hey, can you do this? I'm just crazy busy at the moment. This, but then on the other side, they're the ones who like, oh, can you send me through this? And you're like, I'm mid sort of nav at the moment. I've got guests in my ear. I will get around to it, but not. Yeah, but we really need it. Like, we're finishing in 20 minutes. We're going home at 5, but we need that document tonight. And it's like, you just fly here. But that's where the level of understanding, and I think, in my opinion, quite the good management companies are the people who maybe were crew and then have moved ashore because, families and all that kind of stuff. And they have that level of understanding, like, no workers, just get it to us whenever you can. It's that level of understanding. It's the same with brokers. The better the crew are, we all know, you go any service industry, you go into a restaurant and the food's amazing, but the service is off. That's what you remember. Whereas if you go into a mediocre restaurant where the service is epic, you're just like, this was an amazing. And the investment is crew. Crew makes experience. I'm incredibly fortunate. I've got wicked crew. And, you know, you just want to keep, it's like spinning plates. You know, there's a lot of different personalities. You can't have too much of the same personality. Otherwise, you end up with sort of this alpha dog kind of environment where it's like everyone beating chests and, oh, yeah, let's go. You need the good mix. But yeah, it's, how do we fix it? Right, magic wand. It's magic wand time. What would you like? You have a magic wand. What are you changing? At a flick of one.
A flick of one. I mean, my ultimate flick of one would very selfishly be like, I would love to go into every management company and board every vessel, private, like family office, and just set up their basic minimum HR everywhere. I would go everywhere if I possibly could. And, you know, I'll come back to Nick and Neil and Hill Robinson, of course, but I'd like to go out to everyone and just be like, right, here is the absolute basics of what you need, and just start getting this acceptance of what is the basics. But ultimately, and this is going to be slightly controversial, if I could wave a wand for the entire industry, I would wave my wand and do away with the term minimum.
Yes.
Because I think this whole thing of minimum standards, minimum safe manning, and everything, this is the minimum it's going to cost you. I'm just so infuriated with the fact that we are holding ourselves accountable to a minimum.
Yeah, exactly. Like, would you want minimum when it comes to safety? Would you want the minimum when you're sat in a life raft and you might be there for days? Do you want the minimum amount of food, the minimum amount of water? Do you want it sort of in plentiful amount?
Like, don't get me wrong, we need consistency across the industry. We need standards. And I think that's the thing. It's about standards and not minimum standards. Okay. Standards, consistency, and all of us should not be looking at, oh, what's the minimum I have to do? We should all be looking at like, what's the most I can do? What can I do next? Right, I've done this. Where can we go next? How can we do more? So I would absolutely wave a wand and the term minimum would just disappear from the industry.
Nice. We'll get some t-shirts made. Minimum, no more.
Minimum, no more. Yeah.
Nice. We have the sort of like Trump's Make America Great Again. No more minimum.
I definitely don't want to be associated in any way to Trump. Like, can't do that.
Yeah. No, no, James, that's bad. No,
James.
Can we edit that bit out?
Edit that. I'm a feminist, okay? Like, also, I'm just a person who believes in people's standards.
Love it. Oh, wicked. Oh, I love it. Love it.
But yeah, we can get hats and t-shirts and stuff and more for that.
Oh, we'll do that. Monaco Yacht Shirt, I'll wear my minimum no more t-shirt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. Wicked. Well, Kayleigh, it's been an absolute pleasure. And
thank you so much.
I look forward to checking in again when we no longer have minimum in any.
When we no longer have minimum, we'll come back. We'll have another chat. How old will we be then? Like.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe in the afterlife.
Maybe, we'll be sat there.
Yeah, just mulling it over.
Mulling over.
Did that minimum thing ever happen? Like, well, yeah, or whichever one it is. Yeah. Oh, legendary. Well, yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, look forward to touching base soon. Cheers, Kayleigh.
Thank you so much, James.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
If your brand belongs in the heart of the yachting world, this is where it happens. Yachting International Radio reaches over 1 million yachting professionals and enthusiasts every month with 77 million impressions, 220,000 social followers, and 74,000 podcast subscribers. Our hosts are insiders, crew, captains, CEOs, trusted voices shaping the industry. This is targeted, high-impact advertising in a luxury niche. Visit yachtinginternationalradio.com/advertise. Your audience is already listening.